quiet town of Hollow Creek, nestled deep within the forest, there existed a zoo unlike any other. The Hollow Creek Zoological Park, known locally as the Enclosure, was once a thriving attraction, drawing visitors from miles around to marvel at its diverse and exotic animals. But that was decades ago. Now the zoo lay abandoned, shrouded in an eerie silence, and cloaked in the creeping tendrils of nature reclaiming its territory. The townspeople spoke in hushed tones of the dark events that led to the zoo's closure. They whispered of the mysterious disappearances, the grotesque transformations, and the enigmatic figure known only as the Zookeeper. It was said that the Zookeeper, a man named Elias Thorne, had made a pact with dark forces in his insatiable quest to understand the animal mind. His experiments, once hailed as groundbreaking, took a sinister turn as he delved into forbidden knowledge, seeking to blur the lines between man and beast. The result was the Zoonomaly, a grotesque fusion of human and animal traits that defied the natural order. One stormy night, a young journalist named Claire Bennett arrived in Hollow Creek. Driven by a thirst for the truth and a fascination with the supernatural, she was determined to uncover the secrets of the abandoned zoo. Armed with a notebook, a camera, and a steely resolve, Claire ventured into the heart of the forest, her flashlight cutting through the thick fog that clung to the trees. As she approached the rusted gates of the zoo, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The gates creaked open with an ominous groan, as if warning her to turn back. Undeterred, she stepped inside, her breath forming white clouds in the frigid air. The zoo was a haunting sight, its once pristine enclosures now overgrown and decayed. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rotting vegetation. Claire's footsteps echoed eerily as she made her way deeper into the park, past empty cages and dilapidated structures. Suddenly, a low growl pierced the silence. Claire froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She swung her flashlight in the direction of the sound, revealing a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her from the shadows. The eyes belonged to a creature that defied description, part human, part animal, and entirely unnatural. The creature lunged at her with a guttural snarl, but Claire was quick. She darted to the side, narrowly avoiding its claws. She scrambled to her feet and ran, the creature's heavy footsteps pounding behind her. Her mind raced as she tried to recall the layout of the zoo from old maps and articles she had studied. She found refuge in an old maintenance shed, slamming the door shut behind her. The creature's growls echoed outside, but it didn't seem to follow her in. Claire took a moment to catch her breath, her heart still racing. She knew she couldn't stay there forever. She had to find out what had happened, and if possible, put an end to it. As she explored the shed, Claire discovered a hidden trapdoor beneath a pile of debris. She pried it open, revealing a narrow staircase that led into the darkness below. With no other options, she descended into the depths, her flashlight flickering ominously. The staircase led to a network of underground tunnels, which seemed to stretch on endlessly. The walls were lined with strange symbols and scribbles, and the air was thick with an oppressive energy. Claire's footsteps echoed eerily as she made her way through the labyrinthine passageways. Eventually, she stumbled upon a large chamber, its walls covered in more of the strange symbols. In the center of the room stood a figure cloaked in shadow. As she approached, the figure turned to face her, revealing the twisted, nightmarish visage of Elias Thorne, the Zookeeper. "Welcome, Miss Bennett," Thorne said, his voice a low, menacing growl. "I've been expecting you." Claire's blood ran cold. You're the Zookeeper. What have you done to this place?" Thorne chuckled darkly. "I have transcended the limitations of mere humanity. I have unlocked the secrets of the animal mind and merged them with our own. Behold the Zoonomaly, my masterpiece." He gestured to the walls, which seemed to pulse with a sinister energy. Claire could feel the malevolent force emanating from the symbols, warping reality around her. "You've created monsters," Claire said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. You've condemned these poor creatures to a life of suffering. Suffering, Thorn sneered. They are elevated, perfected, as will you be in time. Before Claire could react, Thorn raised his hand, and the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. Claire felt an intense pressure in her head, as if her very thoughts were being twisted and pulled. She fought against it, her willpower the only thing keeping her from succumbing to the Zoonomaly. Summoning all her strength, Claire broke free of Thorn's grip. She grabbed a metal rod from the floor and swung it at the zookeeper, striking him across the face. Thorn staggered backward, momentarily dazed. Seizing the opportunity, Claire fled the chamber, her only thought to escape the nightmare she had unwittingly entered. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, but Claire finally found her way back to the surface. She burst out of the trapdoor and into the cold night air, gasping for breath. Behind her, the sounds of the creatures and Thorn's enraged shouts echoed through the zoo. She didn't stop running until she reached the safety of her car. As she sped away from the zoo, she glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the creatures chasing after her. But the road remained empty, the zoo receding into the distance. Back in the safety of her hotel room, Claire reviewed her notes and photos, her hands still trembling. She knew she had to expose the truth about the Zoonomaly and the horrors of the Hollow Creek Zoological Park. But as she stared at the images of the twisted creatures and the malevolent figure of the zookeeper, she couldn't shake the feeling that her ordeal was far from over. The Zoonomaly had marked her, and she knew that Elias Thorn would stop at nothing to reclaim his lost prize. The nightmare of Hollow Creek was just beginning, and Claire Bennett was determined to face it head-on, armed with the truth and a resolve as unyielding as the darkness that sought to consume her.